Good morning, good morning. It's Friday, the 31st of March, 2023. It's Trans Day of Visibility. Sending love out to all our trans siblings today. For those who don't know, we are a trans-friendly, trans-allied page. And if that's not for you, then you can fuck off. But anyway, today, in honour of celebrating some of our amazing trans people, I am joined by someone very special, and we're going to talk about not transness, because who knew? Trans people have other experiences. So I'm going to bring on my lovely friend Sloan, who is someone that I've known for a good while, actually. We're going to chat a little bit about how we know each other, and then Sloan's going to share some of their experience with you about being a young person who had barriers to education. And I hope that you're going to get lots from it. We're going to talk about how not being able to attend school and not being able to get GCSEs is not necessarily the death sentence that we will all be led to be believed it is by some professionals who tell us that not getting our GCSEs is the worst thing in the absolute world. So, good morning, glorious human. How are you?
I am good, thanks. How are you? I love that. I'm success story. I'm like, I'm normally a troublemaker.
I know, when I said to you, can we do this? Can we talk about a success story? You're like, am I a success story? Hell yes. Hell yes, you are. And we were just laughing before Sloan and I came live at how unconventional our lives are. Because I'm drinking my morning cuppa from a Christmas mug. We wish you a Merry Christmas. And what are you having for breakfast, Sloan, this morning?
I'm having baklava and coffee.
And that's going to be the theme for today's conversation. Stuff convention, stuff social norms. We're doing it our way. So let's just do a little bit. Also, baklava. I say baklava. I want to know from someone who is, where is it from? Is it from Turkey?
I think it's Turkish.
Right. So if there's anyone Turkish here, I would like to know how you pronounce that. Do you know that? I'm assuming you don't know, because you don't do the same as me. If you don't say, then you must be wrong. But maybe you have internal knowledge.
I don't have. Well, it just says Chateau de Mediterranean, which is vague, isn't it? But it doesn't have a. It doesn't have a pronounce. It does, doesn't it? Luxury you can taste.
So it's actually baklava. Baklava. Full of
smoking.
Ouvre la fenêtre. Right, that's all my French. That's it. So, of course, I didn't do well at school either. Well, actually, I did, but I didn't do well at French. Jo says she thinks it might be Greek. Oh,
that's what I thought. Yeah.
Right. So,
I'm getting a little bit of sticking, so I'm just going to wait for the Zoom to catch up. Hello.
That's Theo turning the telly on. That's how unstable our Wi-Fi connection is.
Something changed. It's like in 1995 when someone picks the phone up.
Someone sneezed on the next street down and my Wi-Fi went off. Literally, I need to sort that out. Anyhow, so let's get a little bit into you. Your name is Sloan, and your pronouns are they, them, and you live in Yorkshire. Tell me a little bit about your experience of, let's just dive right in. Let's talk about school. How was that for you? How was school for you?
School. So I want to give you the context. So school was unconventional for me from quite a young age. So parents divorced when I was, bio parents divorced when I was about 5, 6. So since then we moved around a lot. So consistency in schools wasn't there. And I wonder if that played a part in not quite understanding the school system and them not quite getting me. So those long-term relations not quite hitting. And yeah, so a lot of moving around from 6 or 7. And then went to high school in Sawbury Bridge for the first year. And then from then on moved to another high school. And that second high school, it was just such a pivotal moment in schooling for me, because I was the new kid for teenagers. So that was like painful. And I was an outsider immediately, which I'd never truly felt before, because I was so young, and everyone's new when you're young. It didn't really click until I got there. So I'm like 11-year-old, and new and very different, just very, very different. And immediately school was uncomfortable. Immediately I didn't want to be there, and I was distracted by not wanting to be there, not being able to settle or concentrate, or having no relation with teachers on general. There was a maths teacher that gelled with me. And, you know, I think often people have or can have a teacher that just like pulls you aside, like, I know you can do it, I believe in you, how can I make a space for you? And I was like,
God,
awesome.
those teachers are so valuable.
Mr. Truman,
oh my God. Mr. Truman, thank you. Mine was called Mr. Norman. He was an English teacher.
Mr. Norman.
Yeah.
And it instantly, it just completely changes everything, doesn't it, in your sense of, so I was just like, wow, well, maths is my thing. But bullying, well, being different and bullying just from day one, kids kind of at the end of the day asked me if I wanted to have a fight, which I've never experienced. That weird thing, like, do you want to have a fight? I'm like, no. Do you? Who says that?
That is the weirdest thing, isn't it? So-and-so wants you to meet them on the field for a scrap. What?
Yeah. And it was very commonplace for fighting to happen, and I'd never seen that before ever. And that was from day one. And I was like, well, no, I'm not into that. But I think that in their culture was quite different. So people would fight to like make this space for them in school. And I was like, no, I'm not into that. That is weird. So from day one,
not my face.
And I think what happened was the first instance of meeting anyone, I was asked if I'm hard. Are you hard? I'm like, well, I've got 3 brothers, so I can fight, but I don't know if I'm hard. I just like, I don't know. I can fight brothers. I don't know. And then it was from that, and I think. And when they asked other people in this circle, they would instantly give themselves up. They're like, no, I can't fight. I'm soft. I'm blah, blah, blah. But I'd never had that kind of experience or conversation in my life, apart from with my brothers, which I'm obviously like, yeah, I'm well hard. So
also, like rough and tumble with siblings is very different to being offered out for a fight on the school field by the hard boy in your class, right? Like, it's a different deal.
It's completely different. But who knew? Who knew? So bullying progressed and got more intense as well. So people would pretend to be friends and knock on my door and have me go down the street, and then there'd be like people there waiting to beat me up.
Nice.
So then
and how old were you, like, at this point? Like, this is in your teenage years, yeah?
From 12 to 15, consistently throughout school, yeah. And it was just a very weird space to be in, and presenting female at that time and being in that girl space as well. There's a lot of other psychological stuff that you have to navigate through, like being friends and manipulation and a lot of like drama and but every now and again I would think people would be my friends and then they'd come and knock on my door, ask me to play out, and then I'd get beat up.
Yeah.
Almost like a sport, I think.
And then puberty, obviously, like that's challenging for anyone. Did you know, I know we're not talking about, I mean, we can, but that's not the intention of today, talking about your transness, but did you know then that you had gender incongruence, that you were, that your gender wasn't aligned with your identity? Did you know then?
I didn't have the words to think that I'm not sitting with my gender, but I did experience having 3 brothers. I just felt like the 4th brother.
Yeah.
So that just felt very natural. So the way I clothed and the way I presented and the way I lived as myself at home, I was just among other brothers.
And did you have homophobic bullying as well? Like, were you read as a lesbian? Like, was that like something that, or not?
No, I wasn't read as a lesbian. I was sexualized as a bi person. So I was very much sexualized and fetishized as someone who performs for the male gaze kind of thing. So that was what my sexuality was recognized as, was as for the male gaze. And that went on throughout my teens and early 20s as being a bit sexualized and a performer for male gaze.
That's quite common for bi people, I think.
I remember being in the lunch queue at school, about 12, and someone much, much older, maybe even in sixth form, asking if I was a boy or a girl. And what are you? And I remember thinking, oh, oh, I'm a trickster.
Giving off the vibes.
Yeah, and that was awesome.
Yeah.
So
funny that a comment that was supposed to be offensive gave you like trans joy. No one knows what gender I am. Yeah.
Oh, trickster. But I mean, so for school there was a lot of other stuff going on as well. So my older brother was a heroin addict. When I was about 14, 15, it transpired that he was a heroin addict. He'd been in drugs for a long, long time. And also my mum and stepdad at 14, 15 got a divorce. And this stepdad, Ian, as the man that made me who I am today, we had an incredible bond and he brought us all up as his. So there was a lot. So there was a divorce, there was a brother with drug issues, and that brought its whole drama. Then there was bullying, and then, by the way, you need to sit down and do your coursework, you need to do your GCSEs, and it's just like, so now nowhere safe. So I just won't attend anywhere. And also lunch times became a thing because the common grounds were where bullies would be. And I also stopped eating for that period. So trigger warnings for all of the things are happening. So stopped eating and didn't know that that's what I was doing. I was just like, food is of absolutely no interest whatsoever. So I would buy cigarettes with dinner money and a Twix. So I'd have...
surviving on caffeine and nicotine. Yeah, and sugar.
So, fags and a Twix. Yeah. So then it was a whole period of not having any safe space whatsoever. So then going to school and doing some work was the bottom of the list.
And it's worth mentioning that I mean, I think it's probably quite clear that you're one of ours, that you identify as neurodivergent. I mean, freaking hell, baklava is the big giveaway. But you also struggled academically, would that be fair to say, because of your neurodivergence, with like attention differences? Would you say that's fair?
Yeah. The academic struggles were a symptom of kind of just not. So school reports, I think it's quite common, isn't it? But school reports were often, they have the potential, but they are the cause of disruption, or they get distracted easily, or they're often chatting at the back of the, and then we'll just get chucked out. So it's like, I mean, the amount of times I've been locked in cupboards by teachers because I'm causing disruption.
Wow.
Honestly, it's just like, you're either going to get kicked out, or I'm going to put you in the supply cupboard. So yeah.
Yeah, we always had seclusion. We just didn't have nice seclusion rooms with mood lighting. We just got locked in cupboards when we were at school.
Yeah.
Think about what you've done. Click, light off. I once got locked in a cupboard by other students during a lesson when the teacher had gone to get something, and had an almighty panic attack. It was frigging horrible. Yeah. So it can't tantamount to you did not feel safe in school, and your response to that was to just stop going.
Yeah, I didn't feel safe, and I didn't feel. So there's a long pattern of not being able to express how I'm feeling. So I'm distracted, or I'm stressed, or and because of the bullying as well, and in fear, and not being able to express that's what's happening, and that's why I'm not attending, or I'm not sitting still, because within the classroom, within the school, within the playground, none of that is safe. So I would often just be, we'll just go outside, or just go to the head. I think then in the final years of school, when GCSEs and coursework started to become more apparent and more important, the head teacher or her secretary, if she had time, would pick me up from home and take me into school, and I'd work in their office, and then they'd bring me home. But that was if they could, and that was only after being pulled aside for so much truancy. And it's like, right, well, now we need to get to the bottom of this. Well, I've been truant for 3 years, and now you need to get to the bottom of this. Well, none of this is safe. So now I'm in isolation with a headmaster, a head of year, and I've got to do some work, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. I have no idea what you want me to do.
That ship had well and truly sailed by that point.
Yes. Yeah.
I think it's really common for children who experience like barriers to attendance over an extended period, and there's this expectation that when and if you're able to get back in again, you'll just pick up where you left off.
Slip back in.
And like there's this sort of like, well, it's on you, you didn't come, you know. And there is, you know, like, I'm not saying that that's always the case, but it does feel like there isn't really much put in place for our children and young people when they can get back into education to plug that gap, you know, that if they can, which, you know, for many they can't. So what happened? Talk me through your GCSEs.
So GCSEs, so coursework parts of GCSEs. So there was maths coursework, and there was I did some I forgot what they call it, like DT, woodwork and textiles and that kind of stuff. So the coursework part of GCSEs just wasn't complete. I just didn't do it. So that instantly brought all my potential grades down instantly. So if I've got exams and coursework GCSEs, instantly there's going to be a ceiling that I can reach. So that was that. And then I think I attended some GCSEs exams. I don't think I attended an English. I attended a maths, because with maths, the reason why Mr. Truman picked up on me is because with maths, no matter the absence, I could go back into maths and I could pick it up.
Yeah, because of your natural attitude.
Because I enjoyed it. He was safe, and I was quite good at it. So maths I could attend, and it's rules, right? It's just maths is right or wrong. And that's great. So I can do that. So maths, I think maths I got Maths was my best grade, and I think that was an E. A lot of grades I got U's, so just not gradable. So I think it's hard to look back because all I've so full disclosure. It's hard to look back and tell you what I did get because I've just lied. So whenever I've been, so as an adult, whenever anyone's like, "So your GCSEs," I'm like, "Yeah, C and above."
That's amazing. We will explain why Sloan is able to lie about that. GCSE is not the highest level of academic attainment that they reach, so it's valid. Who doesn't lie on their GCSE on their CVs anyway? I love that. I freaking love that. It's hard to remember what I got because I lie. Can you remember what was said at the time about not getting like a good set of GCSEs? Because like I know you don't look it, but you're kind of you're older. You're like in your late 30s.
Yeah, I'll be 40 this year.
Yeah. So can you remember what was said? Because I think that the landscape has changed a little bit, and now it like there is a lot of like, if you don't get your GCSEs, you'll be homeless. You'll you'll have to work in Tesco. Like that's the worst thing in the world. There's nothing wrong with working in Tesco. You know, all of this is. Can you remember like what was said at the time?
Yeah. So yeah, there's like discussions around what you're going to do when you grow up, and when that careers advisor comes in and does some tests and stuff, and it was always inconclusive. So because of my lack of attendance and then getting to scraps and my inability to concentrate, I was sectioned with the naughty boys. So the boys that
not actually sectioned, you mean lumped in?
Sectioned, but not actually sectioned, but put aside with the naughty kids, and the naughty boys, especially because they were more actively, outwardly reactive in school. So what happened was we were told, so there were 3 of us in my form, boys, that were told that the best thing for us is to join the forces.
Interesting.
Yeah, because that would mean discipline, and it will put us right, and some life lessons, and we'll get a trade. So that was the selling point of like discipline and a trade, and then you can actually live a life. So there was no civilian options, and also in terms of the discourse and conversations, there wasn't a connectedness then that I think there is more of now. So school and parents and me, there wasn't that connectedness. So I would me and school would have conversations, and me and parents didn't. So by the time it's GCSEs, my mum's on her own. My stepdad works away 6 weeks and comes home 6 weeks, so he's working on ships. My mum's got other distractions, so she's got an eldest son who's heavily into classes, and there's now police involved and all kinds of stuff there. So there's a lot happening at home. So there wasn't any attention on me and my GCSEs and what those results would be, apart from, okay, so let's talk about the forces. The forces is the only option, because someone's going to look after you, someone's going to take care of you, there'll be discipline, you'll get a trade, bish, bash, bosh.
And there was never conversations about, well, you could maybe be self-employed, you could maybe work for yourself. Never.
No way. No way. Imagine. And that's the difference between my experiences at school and my experiences of university.
Yeah. So let's talk about, because you have no GCSEs. You are, you're a dropout, right?
Yeah. 100% dropout. Yeah, high school dropout.
And here we are, like 20 years later, and you have had a really successful corporate career.
Yeah.
And you have a degree.
I
And
do.
you now have your own business.
Yes.
So
What?
what happened? This is what I want people to hear, right? Just because, for whatever reason, your children or young people don't secure their GCSEs, that does not mean that all of these doors are closed to them.
Yeah.
So, and I also want to say that we're going to talk a little bit about university, but we're not saying that university is the be all and end all either, are we? And we're also not saying that you needed that degree in order to launch a successful business. And we're going to just talk about how that happened. So how did you go from being a dropout? I'm going to speak really scathingly about you. A dropout from a broken home where the police were knocking on your door regularly and there were, all of that shit to, oh, look at me, I've got a degree. How did that happen?
Yeah. So I'll just take you through that timeline from being 16 to being 19. So 16, I went and worked at Beverly's Baps sandwich shop, which I loved.
Beverly sounds like my kind of woman. Oh, was it Beverly the place or Beverly the person?
Beverly the human.
And her shop was called Beverly's Baps.
I loved it.
Jesus, that's the best.
Right?
That's the best.
So I worked at Beverly's Baps and I was serving the worker lads lunch.
I've just had this thought. Did you ever see that gym in Salisbury Bridge that was called Legs?
No.
No. And the day that opened, come on in, legs are open.
Yes, that sounds like something from League of Gentlemen, doesn't it?
Anyway, sorry, I digress. So you loved Beverly's Baps.
Loved it. It is the best name ever. So absolutely loved Beverly's Baps. But I was 17 and I was going out and was partying for 4 or 5 days a week. And then I was sacked because I was going out and then going to Beverly's Baps. I would just go home, put on a penny, and then go to Beverly's Baps. And obviously the cream cakes were getting smashed all the time. So I got fired and I was living at home with Mum. And Mum was a full-time care assistant. She was a senior carer. And she said, you get a job or you move out. So she got me a job as a care assistant at a care home. And that was the turning point because I started working on my MVQs. And that was the first time that I ever realised or ever recognised that qualifications in education doesn't have to be the school system. It can be what you want it to be or what you make it to be. And that was the first time someone's like, what do you want to get from this? And how can you make this work? And I was like, oh, I could do this. What, you mean you want me to do the thing that you're telling me to do however I want, as long as I get it done? I was like, I can do that. I can do that. And it was incredible, those 2-3 years of working with older people and making connections and gaining qualifications in a way that matched.
Works for you.
Do it.
Because the thing about MVQs, is that basically you're evidencing what you know through the job. So they're not saying learn this stuff, sit this exam. They're saying, right, these are the things that you do in work. Let's make sure that it matches up to whatever these competencies are on the NVQ. I know this because my mum used to be an MVQ assessor. Right, the competencies on the NVQ, and then they go, this person knows their way around this job and they've demonstrated these competencies. So now they've got a national vocational qualification in this field. I think that MVQs are great. I think they're brilliant.
Yeah.
I wish they weren't. I think now we're moving away from it, but I think historically they were seen as a you're not right clever. We'll get you. Yeah. Same as HNDs. My brother said, don't do an HND because it stands for has no degree.
But that's definitely how they were seen in school. Yeah. And that wasn't even, I wasn't even told that was a thing, that I could get a job and then get education. It was this linear education job.
Yeah. GCSEs, A-levels, university, if you're bright enough. If not, you definitely need your GCSEs.
And it had to be linear, didn't it?
Yeah.
So that was the first time I recognised that there was other options in terms of qualifications and work and how you can make it fit to what you're already doing or what your own interests already are. So I worked in this nursing home for a few years and then decided I wanted more experience. So I then started working in agency and going out and then experiencing different providing care in different spaces for different needs. So in people's homes and supported living and all that kind of stuff. And then I recognised that sometimes I could see things that need to be done better. But as an agency and as someone with an MVQ and not a nurse or not this or not that, I didn't have the voice that I needed to make different changes or to make things better. And it was at that point where I was like, okay, so I know that I want to help folk. And I think there's better ways of helping folk. And I've learned now that there's other ways of learning. And at the moment, I'm voiceless without getting what you folks have, because I'm arguing with nurses and doctors and managers and stuff. So, a friend of mine that I was a carer with, she did her nursing from her MVQs, and nursing wasn't really something for me. I wanted something much more advocacy based, something much more less constricted.
You wanted to make a difference, not make beds.
A difference, but I didn't want to just like yes.
Nothing wrong with making beds, by the way.
Yeah. So I literally walked into the reception at Huddersfield University and was like at the human health department, and I literally walked in and said, what do I do to get a degree? Or what do I do to come here? Like, who do I speak to? And they were like, well, have you done this and that? I was like, no. No, but I'd really love to speak to someone. And they were like, we are doing interviews in the next weeks, and I'll put you in touch. So they put me in touch with Selena Copley and Jeff, I can't remember Jeff's name, and just said, fill in this online form, just give us some details and you can come for an interview and we'll just have a chat.
So you literally just walking off the street to the reception of the university and said, how do I get in here?
Yeah.
Pretty unconventional approach.
Yeah. Because there had to be a way. There had to be a better way. There had to be a way. And other people must have done it. And other people must be like me. I'm not the only one. Contrary to my experiences, there must be other people that have experienced, not having XYZ qualification.
Yeah, my God.
Yeah, so I'll just watch
that. Like, you're right. There absolutely are people who have achieved, like post-grads and, post-16 education who have not had the pre-16 qualifications. Yeah. There has to be. There has to be, and there are. So being able to think, well, other people have done it. I'm not sure how I'm gonna, but other people have, so there must be a way.
There has to be a way.
I love that.
And I knew that I had something to offer, and I knew that I had a passion, and I knew that I wanted to do good stuff for the right reasons. And I was like, so why shouldn't I? Right?
Yeah.
Why shouldn't I? So I was invited to an interview, and I was invited to an interview with Selena Copley, Jeff, can't remember his last name, and another lady. So they were like the heads of health and social welfare. So I was invited to an interview, went in, had a chat, and so I haven't done my GCSEs, and I'm literate to an extent, but I mean, I couldn't spell. I couldn't play Scrabble with friends. Like, I would avoid games night with friends. I can't play Scrabble with friends because I can't do words. So I really was quite far behind in that sense. I couldn't type at all. So we sat there for about 40 minutes and we were like talking about like what I want to do, what I know. And at that time I talked about, something I'd read in a newspaper and what that meant, and like how I questioned that, and critical thinking, how do I approach that? And it was a girl that had been not brought up, but she'd lived her young life with dogs, I think. She'd been abandoned as a child, and nurture nature. And they were like, so
I remember that press story. Yeah.
Janie, I think she was called.
Yeah, the wild girl.
Yeah. So we talked about that. And then they said, okay. So we're going to give you an hour to go and sit in the cafe area, and we want you to write an essay on any health matter, any health subject. We want you to write an essay for an hour, and we'll have a read and we'll go from there. And I was like, yeah, cool. And I talked about obesity and society's expectations and how society sees obesity, but then what other many parts of a person's life can feed into obesity, and how most of it's really society's problem, not the individuals. And then they read it, and I went back in, and they said, okay, we'd like to offer you a place without condition in health and social welfare degree. And I was like, okay.
Were you like, do you not even want me to lie about my GCSE results?
Yeah. Do I need to do a maths test or a spelling test? And we're like, no, just come in.
Because you showed them.
Yeah.
This is what I really want. We need to empower our young people to, and I know it's not just a straightforward, and so you just walk in and you ask for a place at university. You know, like there were lots of things that stacked up. There's elements of privilege. I know that you recognize your privilege, and you know, for sure.
100%.
And you showed them that you had an interesting brain, and that you were going to be someone who would really engage with this learning. And that is what people at university want to see in their students. That's what they want to see, if that's the route you want to go down.
Yes. Yeah. So I started university, and I started in health and social welfare, and my first paper, what was that about? My first paper was about, it was supposed to be about media, and my first paper was about the killing of James Bulger, because there was a lot of narrative then about it being around the film Chucky. And I talked about that, and I talked about how actually it's got nothing to do with the film. It's all about how the surrounding experiences of a child and how they see themselves in that and all that kind of stuff. And I got an
A. Was that your first ever A?
First ever A. I got an A, and it was beyond expectations. Beyond. And what was really interesting was, so my approach to papers and anything at university was they literally told you what to do. Pick a subject, but we want you to cover an introduction and then cover these separate things and then close. They literally told you what to do. So I just did that.
Yeah.
On a subject.
It's so interesting. One of the things that Theo worked on with his tutor when he had his year of education otherwise than at school was how do you look at like the mark scheme for an essay to make sure that you give yourself the best chance, you know. And he goes in now, like at college, and he'll be like, they set an assignment, and the first thing he says to the tutor, can I have the mark scheme?
Right.
And like the other students are like, what? And he's like, well, I want to get a good grade, so I want to see what they're looking for. And then he follows that like prescriptive, like step by step, which works really well for his brain, gives him a structure to work to. He can't abide it when they say, go and write something on anything you like. He's like, what? No, tell me what to, give me some choices and tell me how you're going to assess it.
Yeah.
That's what education is about. Like that's about what being assessed is about, is knowing what they're looking for and knowing how to give them what they're looking for. That's a skill. And that is not something that you learn necessarily by getting 5 GCSEs at grade C and above. At all.
Yeah. Because there's no context. For me, at school, there was no context. Why do I need to learn this? When is it going to come in useful in life? Why is this important? what does this mean?
Yeah. Whereas at least but at uni or in post-16 study, you have control over what you're engaging with, right? One of the things that Theo has spoken about quite a bit, and I've just interviewed him for some new content for the book. I wrote a book. I don't know if he mentioned it. And I can't say the book and not include that sentence. But is he, the difference between school and college in terms of how he's treated, how he's able to manage his own time, the things he's engaging with. No one's telling him you've got to do, what's that thing at the baccalaureate when you've got to do a language and a classics and an English and a maths, and no one's saying that to him. To be fair to him, he's got his English and maths boxed off, so he's able to like pick what he's learning about, and it makes such a difference. Such a difference, especially for children and young people who have attention differences. Like, my worst nightmare would be to sit in a maths class because I didn't understand maths. Like, my ADHD brain was just not good with it. I never learned my times tables. I still don't know them. Do you know what I mean? I do my 9 times tables on my fingers by putting fingers down. I know 6 6s are 36 and 8 8s are 48. That's about it. But I used to sit in maths classes and like stare out the window, and the maths teacher would throw board rubbers at me. So I've got quite a lot of trauma around maths. It's not that I'm no good with numbers, it's just that I couldn't learn maths. But put me in an English class and I was at the front like that, couldn't get enough of it.
Oh my God.
And then went on and did a degree in English. So,
I think what another thing with university, with my courses was, and I'll talk about the shift in subjects, is one of the things was the real focus on, because it was health and social welfare, so it was a degree to the healthcare system. So what you could do, so what they did is every single week they had a professional in a different area, and they'd talk about what they do. So you had this prescriptive, like how we're going to grade your papers, but then they would give you the option of, well, make it about something that you want to go into. So make it about something that is specifically interested to you. So that first paper for me was the murder, and I was in a health and social welfare. So we got to year 2, and some of our modules crossed with criminology degree, and that was community safety and crime prevention, and we crossed over. And then it was at that point I was like, well, this is actually the space I want to move into. Not so much healthcare, but more about society and protecting and working with a group of people that aren't always represented. So we shifted. So in year 2, I asked to be moved on to a different degree. So it was applied criminology. And I had to have another interview with Selena Copley. She comes up a lot. So I had to have another interview about why this degree actually is more suited to me than the other one. And they agreed to take me over. So I used the points that I got in the first 2 years and pulled them over. So I did 2 years health and social welfare and 2 years criminology. And my first lecture, my first criminology lecture, I can't remember even what it was. I think it might have been with Jeff. But towards the end, Selena came in and to talk to the lecturer or whatever it was, and she recognized me. She was like, oh, how are you doing? How was your lecture? And I was like, this is amazing. I was like, this is so exciting. And she said, you will be one of our firsts. And it was like, what are you even talking about?
Is now when I learn about my GCSE results?
yeah, well, I did get to see. And she said, you will be one of our firsts. And from that point on, I recognized for the first time in my life that I can do that. There's nothing stopping me to do that, because now so at that point, so I was in a relationship with a guy who had 2 children. I was a cleaning supervisor for the first couple of hours of the day. And then I was a cash officer at TK Maxx for the next few hours of the day. And then I got to lectures and get all my resources from university that I'd need. And then I worked behind a bar in the evening, and then I studied through the night.
Hooray for ADHD!
Right? I loved my specialist subject, and I did everything in my power to make that happen. And I do not condone
Ideal.
22 hours a day. But it worked. It worked for me because I found my specialism. I found that I can create an environment for myself that's conducive to getting the results that I want in a subject that I want, in a space that I want, and it was safe. Uni was so safe for me. And having Selena there to recognize that throughout the 4 years was incredible. And in my final year, she was my dissertation supervisor as well, so she was by my side quite a lot. And it changed my life. So university changed my life because I learned that I could do whatever I set my mind to by creating a space that allowed me to do that, rather than having to do it in somebody else's pre-made space that I had to fit into. So that I could do anything I want. And also, I forgot what the second one was. Oh, critical thinking. And so, like, I have a criminology degree, and as you know, I'm not a criminologist. And
just 1 second, just what did you get in your degree? What was your final?
So 36 people in my cohort, 3 people got a first class degree, and I was one of those people that got a fucking first.
Yes, you were. You fucking dropout.
Right. A first class degree, yeah.
I haven't even got one of them.
Yeah.
I've got 2-1, and I'm proper clever.
I just followed it. Yay, Suzanne, thank you. Yeah, it was my specialist subject, like, and there was going to be nothing to stop me on my specialist subject. I could just make it happen.
And you worked hard. And you
worked fucking hard.
You loved it.
I loved it. I truly did. Like, the subject matter was incredible. Like, we met so many people in different specialisms throughout the criminal justice system and the healthcare system, and it was so inspiring and so nurturing as well. It was really, really something else.
And you're not a criminologist?
I'm not a criminologist, no. So what was really funny was every time we had someone come in from their specialism and talk for an hour on their specialism, every single time they come in, I'd be like, oh, I'll do that.
Again, hello, ADHD.
Yes.
Sounds amazing.
So I could be, oh my God, so many things. So I could be in the forces. So I was going to join the Navy. I was going to be a prison governor. I was going to work for the probation system. Mate, I was going to do it all. When it got to my final years, there was the WikiLeaks thing. Do you remember Julian Assange and the WikiLeaks? Yeah. So my final years was actually what I wanted to get to the truth. Give people that don't necessarily have a voice, and I'd be an advocate. So, and that's come throughout my life, my own experiences of not having a voice, and then learning my voice by walking into uni and be like, so how do I get me one of these? And learning that there's groups of people that don't necessarily have a voice or aren't represented, and it took me to this. I wanted to be a journalist. I wanted to be a political investigative journalist. And left university, but I quickly realised that it's who Daddy plays golf with. And that's fine. That's totally fine. And now like, so I'm not a criminologist. I don't do anything within the criminal justice system. But what I learned from university that's not necessarily criminology degree is that I can do it if I've got the space to do it, and if I've got the setup to do it, to protect myself. And critical thinking was a major thing, really.
And I think you've done with your degree what I have done with mine. Like, I've got an English literature and performing arts degree, but I was going to say I'm not a writer, but I am. I wrote a book.
Right?
That's quite recent. But I'm not, you know, and I have dabbled in performing as well. And my interests, my leisure time is tied to my degree.
Yeah.
So I enjoy the things that I engaged with as part of my degree. But my working life, it's the skills I learned there that I apply to my working life. And, you know, one of the biggest things I think, and like, we're not here going, everyone must go to university. Like, we're not. But one of the things that I found really helpful about being engaged in learning that was self-directed, basically, that I could pick modules and do what interested me and what fascinated me, was that I learned that actually, when I was given the space to express myself and to engage with things critically, it really fired me up. And like, it really kind of like, I really learned those skills around, you know, your opinion is interesting and people do want to hear what you've got to say. And when you're someone who is from a marginalized group, you know, and in my case, I'm thinking about being a neurodivergent person, that has so much power when you are in a space when you then do have agency. It's so powerful. And you don't have that as a GCSE student at all.
No.
You just don't.
You don't, do you? You're not an individual
No.
at all. That is not celebrated whatsoever. No. Especially, I mean, I left school in 99. Being an individual wasn't celebrated. Being an individual, in my case, being an individual was something that will work out of you if you go in the forces, and then you could be seen.
Yeah. So you've had a career, you've had a first career in the corporate field, working. I mean, I don't want to speak for you, but what kind of work have you been doing over the past 20 years?
So I just slipped into admin, really, from university, slipped into admin, and then kind of worked up through like secretary, admin, PA, EA, executive assistant. And that's where I was. So I was an EA before lockdown, executive assistant.
Working in the charity sector, yes? Working for organisations that like elicit change.
Yeah. So actually, that company that I worked in before lockdown, Carrion and Box, they provide employee engagement. What's the thing when you ask people questions and they tell you the answers? Like a
market research.
Yeah. Within employment spaces. So like they work with like Vodafone, NHS, and that kind of stuff. So they do engagement surveys. So they're doing staff engagement surveys and then create strategy to move forward in terms of engagement, specifically engagement, giving people a voice, that kind of thing, which is like what I'm all about, right?
Yeah.
And then we went into lockdown, and I was furloughed for 10 weeks. And I was like, oh, okay. So now what? So over the years, over like 10, probably 15 years, I've been quite heavily, I'm massively into fitness, keeping fit, strength. It helps me.
Weightlifting, yes, that's your thing.
Yeah. So it helps me regulate by strength training, powerlifting, picking things up and putting them down again, incremental weights.
So good for your sensory system, though. Like that, like I was like, yeah, that totally tracks. Like, as a neurodivergent person that needs to regulate your sensory system, picking up heavy shit, that's going to do it, you know?
Yeah. Oh, it's awesome. It's awesome. And it just like tires you out and it's so meditative. So I went into lockdown and I was like, what I could do is just do that as a qualification. So I live at home. I live alone. I've got loads of fitness equipment here, and I could just make that a qualification, and then I can help my mates. I can help my mates. It'd be really good fun. It's like my specialist subject. I may as well like make something of it, just like for funsies. So I did that.
Meanwhile, I was sat on a couch for 10 weeks eating crisps.
I mean, it was the only thing I did. People were like, oh, you're so motivating and you're so active. I'm like, no, I do a thing for an hour and then the other 23 hours I lay down. And I make bread. So yeah, I did that for a bit. Did that for lockdown. And then when I came out of lockdown, I was made redundant in the sector that I was working in. It was really interesting. So I went back to work and I was like, going into lockdown I felt a real sense of my value being questioned, because when everyone else was out saving the world, I was told to just go and have a sit down and just wait for all the grown-ups to finish what they're doing, and then we'll let you back in when we're done. And it got, the furlough, they were like, so you're not needed here, go and have a sit down while the grown-ups get to work. And I was like, oh, fucking hell no. And that was really weird. That was such a weird thing, that my sense of value was like, in the apocalypse, it doesn't kind of helping successful white men do their jobs as an EA isn't that valuable in the apocalypse.
Funny that.
Who knew? So then when I went back into,
when no one needs their dry cleaning picking up, you're all of a sudden not useful anymore.
What do you mean you don't want me to put your presentation in a folder? What do you mean the coffee machine needs renewing?
We're playing down. As an executive assistant, you do a lot more than just pick up dry cleaning. Like, we're playing it down. You basically run their life for them. But I guess when they've got no one to engage with, they don't need you to do that.
There's no life to run. There's no life to run. There's no business. There's no travel. There's no meetings. There's none of that. They're sat at home in their pajamas doing everything on a screen. So there's very little for me to do. So when I went back to work, I realised that. I wasn't living my fullest potential, and my sense of value had been misplaced in a bid to just be successful, because I wasn't in criminology. I was just like, let's just get successful and get some money in, and I did great organising other people's lives. I'm so good at telling you what you need to do to be better.
You were even excellent at unsolicited advice and solicited advice.
So, So I recall just kind of being disengaged then. And I had a conversation with the director. Well, I told him that we needed a conversation, and we had a Teams call, and I was like, so there's another lockdown coming, and I'm going to close the office, and I feel like you're not getting any value from me, and I feel like I'm not getting any value from you. And he was like, funny you should say that, because we're looking at redundancies. We'll let you know in 24 hours. I was like, okay. So in 24 hours, I was made redundant. Finished my PT qualification, and the 1st of April, when the gyms opened and we came out of full lockdown, I was a personal trainer, fitness coach, and online mentor.
And like now, like something really like it's all coming together, right? Like all of these like strands of like all, and now you've got this laser sharp focus.
Yeah.
And next, like the thing that's about to happen, are you allowed to talk about it?
Yeah.
So talk about the thing that's about to happen, because this gives me goosebumps.
So what I then experienced in the fitness industry was, it was not designed for or by people like me, people that look like me, and people that people that have life experiences like me. So AFAB, it's so essentially fitness industry was made for and by a white man, right? And even like the equipment, if you're not 6'2", then it doesn't fit you ergonomically. And there was a lot of weird feedback in terms of changing rooms as a non-binary person, working in a male-dominated environment, being told that I must be a good PT if I can train men. Awesome. So that's where the value is in the fitness industry, is the cis men are the pinnacle of success. But the reason why I wanted to be a PT, I wanted the PT qualification, is so I can help my mates. So I can do shit for me and I can do shit for my mates. And this isn't my mates. So if I want to serve people that live experiences like me, or people that experience difficulties and barriers like I have, then I can't do it in an environment that was made for and by those people that don't represent me.
Oh, hello, parallel with schools.
Right. Right. So and that, I had to take a break. I had to take a massive break, because I was like, I can't, in good faith, say I create a safe space for people who experience barriers like I have done, or other barriers, in an environment that's made for and by white cis man. So I took a break, had a little think, and now here we are. So. So get to it, Sloan. So now the Body Institute, which is my personal training business, is a Body Institute and community
company.
Community interest company. And that means that allows me to create a space for people like me who don't feel like they've been served by the fitness industry. I could create a safe space for people like me and like others. And not only can we create this space, but we can access funding, government funding, specifically for us, specifically for LGBTQIA, people that struggle getting access to, people that have different barriers. So I can now create this space that I always said I would do. Now it's legit and everything. We can do that. So starting small, I've got something else to tell you as well. So starting small, it's going to be the online space. So it will give me some funding to have a studio, even if it's a couple of nights a week, so I can create an online space, so I can train people. And online's always been super, super accessible for people working out at home. That the gym is just a foreign space, and I get that. Training in the gym for 10, 15 years is still fucking mega hard. When I'm not feeling it, when I went through burnout and I had to come back to the gym, and I wasn't powerlifting, I was so out of my comfort zone.
And it's an intimidating space to be for someone who is in a marginalized body, for example, or for someone who, has challenges with sensory things, or for someone who finds social spaces particularly difficult. All of those things mean that traditional, conventional gym spaces are really inaccessible for people.
There's so much going on in a commercial gym. The lights, the noises, the people in your spaces. There's so much going on.
Everyone is sweat.
People sweat, grunting. Can we not? Can we not, please? There's so much going on. And from my gym that I've trained here, there are binary changing rooms, which is super orcs. It's super, super orcs at the least, and at the highest level, it's dangerous. It's not safe, because I walk into a gym looking like this and people don't know what I am, and then I'm like, so no, I've got to go to a women's changing space, which is uncomfortable for me, and it's going to be uncomfortable for them, and then I need to get naked. And it's like, well, now that person has a body that There's so much happening there. So they do have a disabled access, but that's one. So only one trans person in the gym at any time, right? Or in the changing room at any time. Fuck that. So we're going to start online and we're going to build it up, and then the intention is to create my physical space that will be inclusive, safe, celebrate differences, encourage differences, and also that space is going to hire out some clinic space for other types of specialisms, so sports massage, acupuncture, other supporting services that are inclusive, safe spaces for people that might not want to go to, a chiropractor, that have, experiences like we do and bodies like we do, or different bodies.
So amazing. Like, you've done right good well for a dropout. You really have. I'm dead proud of you.
So as we're building that, I mean, this is only an application stage, so I probably shouldn't say it out loud, but I'm fucking gonna.
You will anyway, because no one's the boss of you.
So while we're building this up, and I quit the day job, I've got an application. I'm currently filling out an application for a press officer for an LGBTQIA charity in Manchester. So I get to shout right loud about right good things as a job.
That's amazing.
While I create my space, so I'll be able to continue this advocacy and this campaigning for spaces, and celebrating right good stuff.
Do you know what I think is just chef's kiss about all this? Is that, like, you're an example of a child who was failed by traditional education system, and who like through their own gumption got themselves a first class degree, and then has built a career, and then has been like, do you know what, this isn't working for me, I'm going to do something else. That I love that about neurodivergent people, that when we're empowered, we go, this isn't really doing it for me anymore, I'm going to go and do this.
Yes.
I love that about us. But what I really love is these stories about how, now don't get me wrong, lockdown was horrible in many ways for many people, and I love hearing about the people who it really worked for. And one of the things I think we really learned out of lockdown, and I think it's a real win, is this thing about embracing the online space. So for me, I work almost exclusively online, and I can support people remotely for all kinds of things that was just not an option pre-lockdown, because you were expected to go and be in rooms with people. And the work that you do, and I know that the work that you and Theo are doing together and have been planning together, having someone who can support a young person who is absolutely not going to be comfortable in a conventional gym space at all, for lots of reasons, but is really keen to build his strength. And really keen to get stuff out of his body. He's much better at taking care of his body than I am. He just values it much more than I do, and that's the whole thing with my trauma. But whatever. That would not have existed pre-lockdown, and I love that. I love that there are people using the leverage of lockdown to do really incredible things in a really unconventional way, and that we are making the unconventional conventional because we had this massive world event that basically turned everything on its head. And we're like the cockroaches. We're like, we have survived and we're gonna thrive.
Yes,
I love it.
Lockdown was transformational for me, especially. So lockdown was transformational for me because I was on my own. For the first time in my life, I was on my own, and I was like, I can thrive. I can thrive in a space that I can make comfortable for me, and I'm not reactive to any people or persons around me. And and then coming into the world again and recognizing the discomfort in real world stuff, social stuff, group stuff, neurotypical expectations, I was like, oh, now this, and that really triggered the start of me in my neurodivergent kind of recognition, self-recognition, and reaching out for that medical recognition as well, and support as well, and just been that opportunity to be self-reflective and be like, what is actually serving me, in rather than how am I serving everybody else around me to make sure everybody else is comfortable, while just destroying my sense of self and my energy and my health.
It was such an interesting time. Like, I think that I'm certain that in like 100 years' time, this period of history will be written up as like the Industrial Revolution is. Like this has changed everything for so many people, and in the majority of cases, I don't know, for us,
for us, yeah.
It's all about us, obviously. Yeah. So let's just, before we wrap up, because I know we've gone on, because I knew we would, and it's great, and I'm loving it. I want you to think about, or I would like it, if you would be willing to just, if you could just share some stuff with children and young people and their families who are in a situation where they've got like GCSEs laid out in front of them, and they're like, this is not going to go the way that we might have planned it. Like, can you just, I know we've talked about it, but would you just give some like words of encouragement, or some like maybe any tips around that you could just share with our families, just to give them a little bit of a, let's just leave them with a little bit of nugget, a little nugget.
I think often is the case, isn't it, that we joke about like algebra, like, when have I ever used algebra? And we use that as like quite a flippant joke, but that's cliche because it's real. Like, we laugh and joke about why are they teaching algebra, we're never going to use it unless you are like an algebratrician, which is a thing. Like,
is it a thing? It is now.
I made it.
Yeah, like what they're doing through our school system historically is training, getting GCSEs, A levels, going to university with a view to becoming an academic, to train the next generation of people who are going to go through GCSEs, A levels, to become academics, to train the next, like that's yeah, go on. Sorry.
I think I'm totally with you there. And I think like an ex-partner of mine, he was a teacher in high school. He was a science teacher in high school, and he left because of the politics around what was expected of him. And what was expected was teach kids to pass these tests, to do these things, and that's it. And he couldn't get on board with that. And I think what's important is like to assure ourselves that that is what that is. And I mean, I don't really know the spaces right now, and I know there are fines and it's a different world as education now, and there's different accountabilities that's expected of families that wasn't in my time. I just skived off school and that was it, really. I just got done if I got caught. And I think it's important to remember to assure ourselves that they are teaching us to pass a test, to then go on to the next stage. And if you want to be a doctor or a surgeon, or to do a specific thing, if your degree, I was thinking about this morning, if you want your degree to feed specifically into your vocation, you want to be a brain surgeon, you want to be a nurse, you want to be a physicist, those are very clear, direct routes, right? And I think what's really important for young people is to be given the space to explore entrepreneurialism, and to explore the idea of the whole world outside of that, and to explore and celebrate that there's a whole world outside of being a physicist or a doctor or a surgeon. That part of society is what creates that colourful tapestry of life, right? Like, yeah, like if I have a brain injury, I can get fixed by by that person. However, I got a brain injury because I was out doing these magical, wonderful, incredible things that the others of society allow me to do. And it's those vocations that create that colourful, fulfilling, like valuable part of life. Entrepreneurs, you know, burlesque events and aerial stuff and sports and all these different wonderful parts of being human and being a part of society. And it's, if education doesn't look like something that is going to serve you, that's okay, because there's so many other millions of ways of living a fulfilling, successful life that doesn't mean getting GCSEs. I mean, I pretended. I'm not saying you should lie, but I fucking did. I did. I still do. Like in job interviews, like I'm 40 years old. So did you get, you know, your A to C's? I'd be like, yeah, okay. I got the 3. I got the science, English, maths.
Like, is there any algebra in this job? No. Then yes, I did.
Right. I mean, and do you know what? Should I admit this online? I'm gonna. So my job that I do now, my day job right now, I'm a finance manager for an organisation, and I started this job as a temp finance assistant, and then I was made finance manager. There was no interview process. I swear to you, there was no interview process. No one's checked I mean, as we've discussed today, I've got no GCSEs and a degree in criminology and an MVQ in healthcare and a PT qualification. None of those are finance. I have experience working within finance as an EA, and I can manage, and I can talk the talk, and I can advocate, and I can make a team, and I can empower a team. But make loads. I'm just about to finish a 12-month contract in a job that I am not qualified to do, but I have done incredibly well because I have used my strengths of creating a team and leading within and supporting those that can do the maths to do that to the best of their ability. No one asked me if I had my qualifications at all, and I literally said to him, I'm not an accountant, I'm a manager. And they were like, cool, I talk the talk, I see your mission, my mission's the same, let's do this. And that's why there are other ways.
Do you know what I love is that what your story, I think, illustrates just perfectly is that success is how you define success. Yes. And like, yes, you have, and like the fact that you went from having no GCSEs to getting a first in a degree is like freaking heck. And also what you've done since then is and about how you've defined your own success, and you decide what success looks like for you. And that is not having like a really well-paid job working for white men. That is having like your own like offer to the world, you know. And I just love that there's this like, you know, like you have no GCSEs and you are successcill. I can't do times tables and I am successful. How we define our success. And
100%.
I'm so grateful to you for sharing this today. You're just
so
you're such an inspiration to me, and I hope and I know that people will get value from this conversation because
amazing. Thank you so much.
You're just a freaking angel. I adore you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, mate.
And look, we've done like nearly an hour and a half of you being as visible as heck. So congratulations, being visible on Trans Day of Visibility. What are you going to do for the rest of the day to go out and be visible? Like, because the rest of the year you're invisible, right? So how do you celebrate a visibility day?
Well, I've got lots of packing to do because I'm moving to the seaside in I don't know how many days. And all I've done so far is pick boxes up and put them back down in other places. Right. And I'm going to eat the rest of my box of baklava and be bloody ace.
Amazing. Well, thanks very, very much. It's been awesome. And if people want to find you, where do they find you? Like, where's the best place to connect with you?
So Instagram, Sloan _ the Body Institute, and obviously Hector Hound and the Boy is my puppy's Instagram. It's a very important piece of work.
Go and follow Hector. He's a legend.
Oh my God,
Sharon says you are an inspiration to any child who hasn't been able to cope with the shitty education system. I think that's what we'll leave it on, Sharon. You are bob on there. Thanks again, Sloan, for joining us. Stay on and we'll end the broadcast and then we'll say goodbye privately. But thank you again so much. Have an amazing day, everyone. See you later.